Hey there, everybody. Happy Sunday to you all. I am back for tonight specifically to do a little bit of game dissection. I have been playing, or was playing, over the course of the past week, Wuchang, Fallen Feathers, and I got, I don't know, let's say halfway through, and then I had to stop. And I'm here to kind of like talk through some of the issues. I can't get to everything because some of the stuff happens pretty far into the game. But what, if you tuned into the stream before, then one thing you probably know is that I am interested in kind of like looking at games and dissecting kind of like how are they designed, like what are they trying to teach a player to do, and how they communicate information and stuff like that. And Wuchang's kind of like stuck out to me. I'll go ahead and start a new game though, because there were some like really weird things that were going on pretty early into the game itself. And honestly, that like when those things happen, it's like I need to do a stream on this, but I didn't want to do the whole game. So Wuchang is a Souls-like game. It is pretty close to being as standard Souls-like game as you can get. Emily, it's in kind of is much closer to Bloodborne than Dark Souls in its kind of like combat flow. I do want to kind of like get to that, back to that later. But it does do things, tries to iterate on the basic concepts, and there are some things it does relatively well. So I want to kind of use the opportunity to kind of look at like the genre that is the Souls-like as a whole, and kind of like how that genre has kind of developed, as well as kind of the pitfalls that these games kind of start running into over time. So I'm not going to do like a full-fledged tutorial analysis per se that I've done in the past, where it's like, okay, we're going to take it slow and like look at every little thing and kind of what the game's trying to tell us. We'll do bits and pieces of that here and there. This game actually, unlike the games I've been doing analyses on in the past, is going to have a pretty, like, I want to say thorough, not thorough, but like, it's a tutorial that is much more upfront. So if you've played like Dark Souls and various From Software games in general, which are kind of your classic entries into the genre, then what you would see would usually be like some messages on the ground telling you here's like what you do, what your controls are and stuff like that. This game's actually going to give us like little tutorial screens and stuff like that. For a good while, it'll like try to like give more thorough explanations. I just want to say up front, I think as a design decision, that in and of itself is perfectly fine. I don't think the way Dark Souls does it is necessarily like the right way. So one interesting little thing is, of course, that it's going to start us out here overlooking a cliff. So the first thing we could do, and actually the first thing I do remember doing, is like, well, that looks like a drop I can survive. And it wasn't until, of course, then coming over here, like, oh, they're just these steps that I was supposed to go down instead. All right. So we get our basic combat. And one thing that I want to note here about kind of the design is, so that little white bar in the bottom left there, that's depleting and filling back up, that's my stamina. So dodging, running. Actually, one thing this game does that I think FromSoft finally figured out in like Elden Ring is the idea that like I can run without expending stamina as long as I'm not in immediate danger. So that running did not have to be this kind of like, you played Dark Souls before, you know, it's like kind of like run, then walk to let your stamina fill back up and start running again. That kind of sprint system was very annoying to contend with. But one thing about, the FromSoft games specifically, but plenty of other games, is to think about where is that bar being placed, and like how big is it, how prominent is it? Because one of the things you want to do when you implement a stamina system, and a health system for that matter, is you want the player to kind of be able to easily keep track of it while also keeping track of whatever is sort of the main thing on the screen. So you want it to be something you can like easily, ideally something that's kind of in your peripheral vision. And thus, if you're going to be like running out, you want to be able to kind of like notice that before you end up expending it all. And one of the things I think was not a good idea here is that our stamina bar is this really tiny bar off in the bottom left. And so it's very easy to essentially ignore. Actually there are times we can just sort of like fall into the background itself. So that was something that I never thought about at first. But it did start to become an issue later on, where I would, of course, realize that I was dealing with stamina, but not really,
why am I here?
Completely forget that, like, oh yeah, there's a stamina system, and I've run out, and now I've made myself vulnerable.
Passed out due to the feathering. I moved you to the cave to recuperate.
The feathering.
I see. No, you not.
I'm not going to comment too much on the story. It's
6 moons ago, spreading unthinkable horrors, after which
there was nothing about it that stuck out as like either amazing, but also not as like terrible either.
I found this silk manuscript on your person. Here, take it.
And otherwise it was a very, it's a lot more like at least a fair bit more direct than a lot of your other Souls-like fare. I think I'm not going to talk to them because I think this gives me a chance to show off one thing I also like about this game's design, which was, okay, well, these are going to be our bonfires, our rest points throughout the game. I'll admit I don't like these because they take so long to activate. All right, so here we go. Here's our first menu. So here's what I can do with the shrine. I can enter the dream. Entering the dream is rest. Here's one thing I want to note. Entering the dream fully restores your health and advances the story. And that's one of those things that, like, when you start playing games like this, you start to realize that, you know, in Dark Souls thing, the bonfire, if a character, it kind of like resets the world. And so if a character is like, says, I'm going to go somewhere and do something, and they're actually just stuck at the spot. They don't like actually move around the world. So they're kind of waiting for you to like leave and then come back. So sitting at a bonfire in like Dark Souls is and resetting the world is something that makes them advance. That in of itself is fine. I find this statement here of advances the story to genuinely be unhelpful, because I know that the first time I saw that, my thought was, wait, advances in what way? Because it doesn't just say advances like, you know, may cause some characters to advance their stories or something. It says advances the story. And it doesn't say it, you know, may advance or things like that. It says, no, it does advance, which gives this impression that like, if I ever at any point enter the dream, rest, which is of course the thing that's going to be pretty integral for getting around the world, because it's going to refill my healing items and stuff like that. That is something that will like cause me to miss stuff, and so I have to like it is something that I then don't want to use. So one of the things I'm always on about is like, what information are you trying to get across? What are you saying? What actually comes across? I think what they were trying to do is to convey that basic idea of like, hey, when you rest, sometimes stuff happens. What they get across is, oh, careful, because anytime you rest, you may end up like changing the world in a way that like you can't take it back. But that's not what actually happens. If you rest, you know, multiple times, you're generally going to be fine. But this is where like this kind of information is really important to nail down. Like, what is it that you actually want to communicate? The next thing, hold on, I'm getting, okay. I was seeing an encoding overload for a moment. Impetus repository. And I want to keep in mind, so impetus repository is going to be my skill tree, is what it means. And so each weapon has a way in which to gain Skyborn Might. You're credited by unlocking related knowns. You can also increase your maximum Skyborn Might. You spend red Mercury Essence to unlock nodes. So make sure. Already the game has thrown a lot of jargon at us. So if I'm familiar with these kinds of like games in general, I already know that like, okay, Shrine, that's my, that's my bonfire. But the, enter a dream is like, what does that mean? Oh, that's okay. I now have to connect it to, that means rest, which other games have that concept of like sitting at a rest point does not automatically rest. You can choose to do that if you want. And they just call it rest. And that's all you really need to do. You can just call it rest. So the fact that it chooses to call it enter a dream feels kind of like it's complicating the language for the sake of it. Or this menu is a skill tree. It's called impetus repository. And this is not like there's no way that this is just some sort of weird, like strange localization thing. Dollars to donuts would bet that these are like active choices, and that if you go to, I'm going to, bet it's, Mandarin Chinese is the original language, and that you would see that same kind of like language in the original Chinese. But like, why is it called that? Just call it skill tree. And the same idea is going to happen for that thing that I read off called Skyborn Might. So the kind of first thing that I remember thinking is like, what the hell is Skyborn Might? What's that supposed to mean? And what it means is
feeling lost.
You can performing certain actions
Wanderers of fate.
will
No need for formalities.
give you kind of like these action points or skill points, whatever you want to call them,
Your left arm. If you master it,
that you can then spend on weapon skills, not in like the skill tree, but like in battle. And so you can get them back relatively easily, and then spend them quickly.
don't call me cruel. You know how it goes. No
but
sweet dreams without
That's
crushing.
a concept that like exists in other games. And so the fact that it kind of insists on calling itself this new thing is like the introduction of jargon.
By you, the belt pinwheel.
Or this, pressing dodge right one to shimmer grants you a stack of Skyborn Might. So like the concept of perfect dodge, that's also, there we go. The concept of the perfect dodge already exists.
Your baby brother will look like us. I'm so excited to meet him.
And you could just use that language. Alright, this is supposed to lose fight. We'll see how far I can go, but... Surprised I didn't get hit by that. So, reason I know this is a supposed to lose fight, is the amount of damage that my attacks do, is pretty dang low. And it's also the case that this boss here doesn't have a lot of kind of like openings. This kind of attack pattern is one that's like, you can see I can do stuff to manipulate it to create opens, but of course that's a very slow process. But if you're up close, it does not really do a lot to like stop and rest. So those kinds of things pretty quickly give the sense of like, oh, I'm supposed to die. And not to mention, like, once you do die, it's like, oh, and yeah, it returns me here and it shows me like this new menu. And when I go down, that guy who put me into that weird dream state won't actually be there anymore. And I think that's kind of fine to do. It's not sort of out of the ordinary for these games to do those kinds of like supposed to lose fights. Elden Ring did it. Bloodborne did it. Demon Souls did it. Let's see. Dark Souls 1 technically didn't do it, but did have one that was pretty close. I don't believe 2 did. Did 3? How does 3 start? Off the top of my head. Does 3 start supposed to lose fight? I don't think it does. But nevertheless, it's a pre. Oh, and then Sekiro has a supposed to lose fight. So it's like, it's not like a bad piece of design to do that. Anyway, so dying. You drop your red mercury. Red mercury is your experience, slash currency. You admittedly do not drop all of it. You drop a percentage based on your madness level. And so madness, does it give me an explanation? I don't think. It might later. I know. So here's the thing that I know is that there is a tutorial menu, which is going to give me a lot of stuff, include lots of things that it's not shown me yet. So camera, perspective, combat. So these are all things that it's shown me so far. Character menu, this is stuff about the character. Skill tree, about different piece of equipment. All right, and then let's go here. So I now have, if I want, a choice of weapons.
Over here.
Let's go and talk to this dude.
Oh. What's happened to him? It's me, Hou Yuzai. You wrote to me about searching Worship's Rise for clues about Bar Yu. Have you forgotten? Bar Yu, your sister. We came here to find clues. For your arm. The old boatman spoke true. He warned of feathers growing on the arm. A mark of feathering. They say it leads to memory loss. And worse, that it ultimately turns one into a man-eating monster. Fortunately, you can still speak for now. Take this. I'll counsel my friend, the old boatman. He made no cure. I scouted the Shoe Sanctum a few days past. Aside from a deranged towers to the entrance, it seemed safe. Rest there and search for clues. See the Light's End Temple? The way to the Shoe Sanctum lies beside it. But the bridge has collapsed. You will need to find a way around. But be careful. If anyone sees those feathers, they'll definitely strike first and ask questions later. If you encounter danger, don't fight. I'll follow your trail and find you. Oh, and take this. This bamboo lantern. I found it nearby. Hard to believe such craftsmanship still lingers here. It's a reminder of how vibrant this town was. The fireflies inside. They seem to glow endlessly. A useful light for your path. I've tested it personally. With this, You'll have both hands free for weapons. Far more practical than a torch. Since we got separated, many of the Imperial Guards have been sneaking around the Tang Emperor's palace. But the refugees say the place has already been ransacked by rebels. Something's not right. I will track down the boatman, and we'll meet at the palace. I'll leave marks, pinwheels, along the path. Follow them, and you'll find me.
All right. So, I want to talk now about environmental design. And so if you look at this kind of, river here, there's kind of like an obvious question that should pop up. Maybe not exactly here. I'm going to show some more points, though, where it's going to pop up, though. And the question that should pop up is, can I go there? So you can kind of look at this and it's like, well, I mean, it's not... That water isn't very deep. That's probably, maybe knee deep at most. And, like, the drop that I made at the start of the game is, roughly equivalent. That should be fine to do, right? And, of course, it's not. And I'm going to kind of demonstrate this at a couple other points. And one of the things this is the thing that, like, first made me think of, like, I think I'm going to need to do an analysis of this game, because this game at certain times has some pretty atrocious kind of environmental design. And it, again, goes on that same question of, like, what is it that you want to tell the player versus what is the information that they kind of, like, receive. And the idea of, like, what is a spot that you can, you can drop down to, because this game, being a Souls-like, is going to rely on you kind of like exploring and going off the beaten paths. And so again, a place like this would be a pretty prime candidate. Maybe we can justify, it's like, well, there's, rapids, light rapids over there. Like, this is effectively a stream here. And, how that can't be that deep. But again, I'm going to wind up dead. Don't even get a chance to see how deep the water is. Just immediately hit the rock, gone. And the game, at least at this stage, is going to do that quite a number of times. And one of them in particular, hey, Shock. One of those times is going to be really bad. Just like unbelievably stupid. Oh wow, that frame rate. Yes. If you're watching, I don't know, maybe like an hour and a half from now, I'm going to show off a really bad, just such a bad case of environmental design. And this is something I found so, like, infuriating, because again, if you had that kind of thing of all right, yeah, no worries. If you had a section of, like, okay, here's a drop off that I don't want players to go down. I want to communicate to them that this is going to kill them. You have quite a few ways to do that. The kind of first, I also need to go back and grab my souls. Where were they? They'd be over here somewhere. Near this guy. Most obvious one, if you want to do something about, you know, deep water, like you're going to drown and you can't swim, is you would make sure that you can't see the bottom of the water. That's a pretty easy one. Lots of games do that. Dark Souls and Play by Other Souls-like, in fact, they'll have like beaches, and if you're watching the grounds as you like wade into a beach, you will see like, oh, here's like just the ground ends, like there's just a sheer drop off. And however you feel about that kind of like design, it at least communicates what you need to do, which is not fall off the cliff. The next idea, let's say you're or the next way to do it would be make the drop really big. There's a certain like height at which a player will look at a drop and say, okay, I'm gonna wind up dead if I try and do that. And so take that height, and there's a little bit of like leeway of like, you know, there's a line, but that line's a little bit fuzzy. So you try and figure out what that line is, and you go like, you know, double it, double that height. And that will communicate to the player, okay, no, not going to be a good idea to do this. I'm going to wind up dead. And the third way is if you, let's say you want to get around that as an environmental, like a design issue. So here's a great thing, Shock.
On your left arm.
No,
That's a
that in fact is not the issue. See if I can. I don't know if I have the
fascinating.
tutorial message yet.
Power of feathering runs through that arm of yours.
Let me see once this conversation is over if I can
How you managed
if I can
to
locate it.
I don't know.
I think,
But make no mistake.
although I think it's gonna show me
Unleashing its full
this view right here, like where I was just standing a moment ago.
powers itching to course through you.
And it's going to be
I'm afraid you're
one of
not
the
ready to
worst
learn it.
like
Not
tutorial messages I have ever read, because it is a series of straight up lies. Let's see if tutorial deaths. It does have different weapons. Let me. Okay, so here's another. And if you look at this, like, it can be a little tough to tell with perspective. Like, that is not deep water. You know, maybe knee deep. Just as a kind of like glance, but like you can see like rocks poking out that aren't. Yeah, it is. That is not deep water. And cool, glad like you can see my character, you know, laying down in it. And let me see if there should be a tutorial message popping up at some point about it. But the the tutorial message that will pop up at some point, and nope, it's still not there. I don't think, maybe it's terminology. It shouldn't be in terminology. Nope, there it is. Drowning. literally where I just dropped off. You will encounter various bodies of water throughout your journey. While shallow water areas can be explored safely, wading into too deep waters will result in drowning. And that is, again, a series of straight up lies. So you can explore certain bodies of water, but it's very specific which ones you can go into. But it is not based on whether the water is shallow, because obviously that water that I was just, about to drop into, that was nowhere near deep water. That should absolutely fit the idea of a shallow, that's a creek, maybe a bit more. It's a stream, but that is not deep water, not even close. And so the reason that triggers, yeah, I have too. That's part of like how I kind of like, when I first got to that section, I was actually on the other side of the stream when I first tried, but I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, I've played in deeper streams than that. When I looked at this little part, I was like, okay, well, off to the left here, it's a series of drops. Like, okay, you probably wouldn't let the player explore over there, but like, maybe there's like something over here, like, there's some hilly, some slopes, maybe there's like something behind the waterfall. And so I was like over on this little kind of jutting out stone bridge here with that chest, and I was like, okay, I'll just try it, and it's like immediate death. And I was like, okay, hang on, that feels like wrong. It felt wrong before I even noticed the tutorial message about it. Yeah, like it's I would still be skeptical about that. Like it's parts of it are moving pretty quick, but parts of it, like what we were just looking at where I died, was very like, there's no way that's too powerful. But nevertheless, it should also be noted, like, that's not really something that probably if you were playing a game, you would really be thinking about, like, what's the pace of the current, unless like the game specifically wants you to think about it. Like there are games that do that. Death Stranding, for instance, would have you think about, okay, well, like how strong is the current of this river that I'm trying to cross? But by and large, it's not something you're probably going to be thinking about too much. You're going to be looking at the environment and saying, like, is that too deep, and is the fall too big? Like, does that look like somewhere I should, be able to walk? And this is that was definitely a case of like, yeah, you're kind of like immediate sniff test is going to be, that's fine, no issues there. And that was where I started getting real frustrated with the game because, well, why kind of show me an area that looks like I should be able to explore if you don't want me to explore it? And I will admit, that is not even the worst case of this issue. Okay, we've got our first mini boss right here. Okay.
Take this.
Oh. All right, now I can equip, where were they in Bloodborne? Blood gems to my weapons. It should have, I bet it would have. You know, I would have thought subtitles, language. Advanced wouldn't be in there. You know, that's an interesting. I would have figured it would have had the ability. You know, one thing I think of. Let me try real quick, because it should just pop me right back there. So I'm not worried. Let me try from the main menu, because if that option exists, I could believe it being something that's you have to load back into. Settings, sound, nope. Aha, yes. Portuguese, Spanish, is that Korean? That's Japanese? No. Russian. That's Japanese, isn't it? Yeah, I think you're right. Seeing the two together made me think that it must have been Chinese, simplified Chinese. And that was because this is, you can do text and voice. So that's, let's see, that's Japanese and Chinese. I think that would be it, right? Okay, we can do it to set the voice settings to Chinese. I haven't heard the Chinese language myself. So this should, like I said, just pop me back where I, roughly back where I exit to the menu. Yep. So yeah, here's where I first tried the whole, okay, this stream here looks like it should be something I should walk into, and this is where I first died. And of course, then when I opened up the, looked at the tutorial and saw that tutorial message, I was like, that's not right. So once I, whoops, forgot about that guy. Once I get to another save point, I'll show off the skill tree again, because I should have quite a number of skill points. And I can show off how that works. Because Shocky mentioned the different weapons, and there are several different weapons. It's built as a kind of like oh, I knew he was going to do that. Sort of a smaller number of weapon styles. And I think you've got 5 or 6 different styles. Let me think. We got long swords, one-hand swords, spears, halberds, twin blades. Maybe it's only 5. But shoot. That was lucky. One of the things that's actually really good about this game's weapon system. Oh, I can go ahead. Is that you can pretty freely dang it, I'm way weaker than I am used to being right now. But you can pretty freely switch between those weapons. Not just in a sense of like, you know, I can carry 2 different weapons at the same time and switch between them. But in the sense of, I can go into menu right now. Oh, I only have 1 point. Let's see, 1. It's hard to see because they're kind of grayed out, but we've got 6 overall kind of like spokes to our, you know, skill tree wheel here. So this left part is going to take us to kind of like general stuff. So these are going to be like increasing the number of healing items I can carry and how potent they are and other stuff like that. This is going to be upgrading my the weapon I'm currently carrying, the longsword. This is the tree for upgrading the halberd. And then there's going to be, once I start getting weapons for those other trees. Oh, I don't have more. It will then unlock those other trees. I can expand into them. But the thing that is really good about this skill tree, because it's really big and sprawling, is that I can incredibly freely rearrange those skill points at any time. So I just spent something here, but if I decide, actually, you know what, I don't want that, I can just take it back and put it somewhere else. If I just change my mind again, put it somewhere else, and I can just do that over and over and over again. If I spend like, let's say I've invested like 50 points into this sword skill tree, I'm like, you know what, I want to, you know, switch things up and invest in a different weapon. Then I can click, usually like right at the start of the tree, and it's like, you want to take back all of your stuff, and it'll refund everything. It'll refund skill points. Down here's the stuff for like upgrading the power of weapons, and it upgrades the weapon class, because there's different longswords and different halberds and different spears and stuff like that. So it upgrades weapon class rather than the individual weapon. And if I decide, oh, I want to switch to a different weapon class, I can get this refunded too. So one thing I definitely appreciate about this system is, if you need to change things up for any reason, if you don't feel a particular weapon class right now, or you want to just experiment or what have you, it is very easy to just do that. You do not have to feel kind of like stuck with your choices. I've actually pretty frequently talked about, I feel like, a need for some of these games to give you more freedom in that respect, where either respecking or changing your, you know, what weapon you're using, you often get into a very much of a sunk cost, because, you know, I'll take, you know, Dark Souls as the constant example. Is you want to upgrade a weapon in Dark Souls, you are spending materials, and you don't get those materials back. And so any choice you make is functionally permanent. Now, of course, the game is supposed to hand out materials so that you can do a decent variety of different upgrades of different weapons. But it does kind of dole them out at a pace that is not terribly conducive to that experimentation. So, for example, one thing that can happen is that if it's going to cost, like I'll use Elden Ring as an example, it's going to cost a dozen upgrade materials to get three levels, and then get to like the next sort of like level of upgrading. And it can take a bit of time to get a dozen, but of course, if I've got one weapon that's at level 3, I don't want to switch that out for a weapon that's at level 1 or 2, plus 1 or plus 2, I should say. So I need to wait until I get, another dozen in order to then get, switch out to a different weapon. And so that again is going to really disincentivize. Oh no. That's not good. Can I? Cool, I'm invincible. So what this is, oh, that's handy. Oh. This kind of invader spirit here. One of the mechanics of the game is that as you do a variety of things, actually it's going to explain it right here. You die. You can also use various items which will increase your madness, or killing humans. Various things will increase your madness level, and your madness level. This is actually kind of interesting mechanic, is it's a slight risk reward. Once you reach full madness, you will do more damage. You'll also take more damage. I don't think it's huge. I think it's like 10 to 20% would be my like rough feeling of it. And then you also get more XP while you're at sort of high levels of madness. I think it's only like 20%, so it's not huge, but it's not nothing either. But if you die when you're at max madness, then you're basically your bloodstain will become an invader that you'll have to fight. That said, the cool thing about it is that it does kind of react to enemies around you, and so you can kind of like, if you're struggling against it, you can kind of like try and pit it against other enemies. I find it really neat. And the other thing I want to talk about, let's see if yes. The other thing I want to talk about, I think I was waiting for a teleport or second shrine so I could teleport and show us off. You can see here, this is the Reverend Temporal, which is where I sort of started my playthrough, and you see these 5 different people. That does not mean these are the NPCs in that area I can talk to. These 5 people mean these are characters who like have dialogue for me to progress. If I were to go and talk to all of them, their portraits would disappear, which means as a consequence, when I'm in this menu and I see, oh, there's there's some characters here who are showing up. I need to go teleport and find them and talk to them. So one common complaint about a lot of Souls-likes, especially again if you're dealing with like the Dark Souls, the From Software games, is that it can be very difficult. NPCs will have quests, but it can be very difficult to like track them because you don't know when you've done something that advances their quest. You don't know necessarily often where they are because they'll sometimes move places. So like keeping track of all those things is really tough. And so this game is trying to help you out. And I think that is a genuinely good piece of design. I think one of the most common complaints about, especially the From Software design about it, is it's incredibly opaque to the point of being kind of frustrating. And I think this gives it a little bit more transparency for you as a player to work with. So, I've got so many complaints about this game, but I do want to give sort of credit where it's due. And speaking of, sort of fancy blades, I want to try out. I played with the longsword for. I got halfway through the game. I played the longsword for like almost the entirety of it. I switched to the one-handed sword at the very end for one boss, but didn't really get a chance to do much else. So I want to kind of try that out a little bit more. Although in fairness, it is an agility-based weapon. And this does not give me a lot of agility points. Not right off the bat, anyway. Gives me magic, though. I guess that can be helpful. Especially with what's coming up soon. We got this guy here who's a merchant.
哦哟，老子就出来透个气的功夫，都可以碰到那个程度的样门哦。嘿嘿，老子叫吴刚，是头头爷爷手底下的一把手，专注一些大买卖。就是菜园里头这些挨签到的，天天惦记到老子的宝贝。等老子跟头头爷爷说一声，就换个安全的地方去。
All right, so I think I can just go straight to. Oh, why did I do that? I think I can just go here. So this is the first major boss. Yeah, it's not telling me there's going to be any issues. So
信方底，奏他的不管，水水间也万死千秋。
Oh, that was close. Shoots. So the longsword is pretty wild as a weapon, as I found out at the end. Not the longsword, the one-handed sword, what I'm using now. So the longsword, and it seems like all the other weapons are kind of like are strict melee weapons where you mostly need to be up in an enemy's face and doing stuff in order to earn the kind of like ability points, attack points, whatever we want to call them. But the one-hand sword seems to be unique in that you just like intermittently get those ability points. So when I was facing this guy with the long sword before, I would have to like, dodge his attacks and make sure that I was hitting him and stuff like that in order to get those points. And then I could I want to cast magic, although I think I was using my the kind of base special attack that you get with the longsword, which is like a kick, which can kind of like briefly stun enemies. So I was kind of doing that. But with this, I'm just like I'm constantly generating the ability to just cast magic, and it's pretty powerful right now. I didn't really do a ton to spec into it through most of the playthrough, but there are definitely points where it's like I really relied on magic, because admittedly a lot of the bosses about a third of the way through start to become kind of not great. So I've also unlocked this ability called Tempering. This takes the place of the kind of temporary buff items in your other Souls-likes. So usually other Souls-likes will have, some kind of item. It was, fire and bolt paper and Bloodborne. It was, there were pellets, grease, the fire, grease and lightning grease and stuff like that in Dark Souls. And so those are things where it's like, oh, you will temporarily get a buff of a specific kind of damage to your weapon, usually for like 30 seconds to a minute. And so tempering takes the place of that in some slightly different ways that would be neat if I made better use of it. So the idea is one, that this is an item that replenishes. So when I activate it, I should have actually equipped it to my and this like when I first read the tutorial, going back to the tutorial's not great, but when I first read the tutorial, I was not sure what it was trying to tell me what to do, but it's an item. By using the item, I get this fire buff to my sword. I will eventually unlock some more stuff, a lot of it through the skill tree. And so what I can unlock, it's kind of grayed out, so it's hard to, I can get these back real quick. So I can show off. So what I can do, these ones here, yes. With these ones, well, yeah. So these 9 nodes at the end of this top and bottom area, these are going to grant me more needles to use. And then as well, I can buy more charges for this thing and additional acupuncture points. So I can like make the thing even stronger. I thought was a really neat, like I said, neat idea when I first got access to it. Although it was also something where I was then like, well, it seems kind of cool, but also I was one of those players who never really like made use of those temporary buff items. Emily, part of the reason I didn't, and why I think the temper system is like actually kind of good, is that I'm one of those players who's very much has the mindset of, but what if I need it later? So it's like, oh sure, I'm facing this boss and I could try and use this, fire paper to give me a damage boost, but I'm going to fight it, maybe 10, 15 times, and then I'm going to run out or get close to running out and I won't have it for the next boss. So what if I could just, keep pressing on and I'll eventually get it. So this like removes that kind of question from the calculus. You don't need to think about it, because every time I rest, I'd actually rest, not just sit at the shrine. But every time I rest, I get the charges back. So I can use this functionally as many times as I want. Again, I think that's a good bit of design, because as an example, like Clear Obscure Expedition 33 did the same thing with its like combat healing items. I'm thinking about that in part because I'm one of the kind of friends of the stream is currently playing that game on his YouTube channel. But most like turn-based RPGs would have, you can buy potions, you can buy, revives and stuff like that. And of course, what that introduces is that problem of like, well, but like, sure, I can buy a bunch, but what if I need it later, stuff like that. Or you buy just a stupid number and you never have to like think about it, but it becomes like annoying to constantly be restocking. So instead, what Clear Obscure did was, you have a limited number, but that number replenishes at save points, and you can upgrade the number and the power of them throughout the game. And it really kind of like reconceptualized like the way you use those items as a consequence. And so I think that's something that's like worth kind of like exploring, is that old concept of like limited of how limited use or temporary items kind of work. All right, so I mentioned when we were showing the stuff about the water and currents and death, stuff like that, that what we had shown off earlier was not the most egregious example. This was the most egregious example. This one right here was where I like at the not the first one, the second one I showed off, where it was like where I first, when I was in my playthrough, that was weird. It's so shallow, and this drop is so small. Like, this looks so blatantly, not to mention it, like, you know, that part's shallow, but also like it connects back to some other places that are also pretty shallow. Like, you could easily imagine a player like running through here to like want to explore for items. And of course, if I just like I didn't even fully step into it. I was still on the rock. But I can confirm, when I first did it, that's only like that is ankle deep at most. That is not even anywhere near. And again, remember that what I pointed out, the tutorial message, the rule it sets up is that if water is too deep, there is going to be a point in the game. You don't run into a lot of sections with water you can walk into, but like there is one that's about like knee high, that you can walk through, no problem whatsoever. And so it's like, it's an incredibly inconsistent rule because the environment itself is just on a fundamental level poorly designed, or at least this part of the environment. Once the game gets out of this area and stops having like rivers and stuff like that, it stops being an issue. It has other issues of environmental design, because another part of environmental design is kind of like the like, where do you go kind of question. So like there are some side paths I ignored, just because I don't need to explore every single thing. But there's a certain point at which like what is a side path and what is a main path becomes like really hard to tell the difference. And the reason that becomes important is players, especially in, I mean, this is kind of true for a lot of players, but especially for these kinds of games. I mean, it's, you know, the corollary like shock is you're playing the nonary games on your stream, and it's like you guys are trying to do the like bad endings first and save the good ending, or the, you know, true ending for last, at least as best as you can. And there's, you know, kind of other reasons for that besides this logic, but that kind of like, I want to kind of like save the main or the right path for last, and kind of like explore side areas first, is kind of the same fundamental logic, because part of the reason you want to do it is like, well, the side paths will end and I don't have to like keep mental track of it, so I can like explore to the dead end and then circle back around and take the main path. But it's hard to do that when you don't know which one's which. And so there's usually these ways and these very subtle ways in which a lot of these games will kind of try to communicate. Oh no, this feels like a main pathway. Kind of double back and go somewhere else. But Wuchang like kind of doesn't do that very well. At least later on to the game. So like right now, this big stairway, this feels pretty main progression-y, and this feels like a side path. But once we start hitting like would be like quarter of the way through the game, it starts having trouble making that distinction. And so you go down the path, it's like, oh, this feels kind of like a side. Oh no, this is here's the next boss right here, like 5 minutes later. And that's also an environmental design kind of issue. I forgot about that guy. I got so lucky. Alright, so we got some enemies that are fighting each other over here. And I think I just realized that I messed up my stat allocation. But I should be fine. Dang it. Okay. This is gonna be a door that opens from the other side. Classic of Metroidvania style games. Oh, this is going to be... Here's my next save point anyway, so that's fine. Let's see. Skill tree. Yeah, that was what I needed. Because this adds 2 more of the stacks of... Again, I mentioned this earlier. This game has a massive jargon problem. Skyborn might. Hey, Omaha, thank you for the sub. Welcome in. How are you doing tonight? Let's do... There's a boss up here. Things are going okay. I'm getting ready, going to be taking a trip later this week to Chicago to visit family for the weekend. Emily, work is hell. Oh, nice. Dang it. Gotta remember the timings on that. Yeah, I mean, work's been... last week and probably this week are both going to be bad. We've been doing... We've got this huge project to completely overhaul our effectively our computer systems and things like that, in terms of creating a brand new filing system that's going to be entirely online. the agency's been working on it for like a decade. It's failed to get off the ground multiple times. This is, I think, like the 4th or 5th iteration. So I'm currently serving as a product owner for a part of it, which is cool. But we are right now in the middle of a testing phase, and boy, is this going badly. And not even necessarily in the sense of like the system's not working properly, but more of the sense of like earlier on the project. Dang it. Dang it. They pulled a bunch of people together to like put together test cases, and the process for all of that was not good. Oh, cool. So we're dealing with a bunch of like weird, like a bunch of chickens are coming home to roost with all that, basically. So I've been juggling that, juggling normal work, juggling the product owner work and stuff like that. And like I said, it's been hell this past week, and I anticipate it being pretty hellish for the next few days. And then Thursday I get to go to Chicago and stop thinking about it. It's not. It would. I'm actually fine being product owner. It's just like, what we're having to deal with this whole. Because what happened is we got training on like, okay, here's how you write a test case, but it took them 4 separate attempts to teach us how to write a test case before people got it. People didn't actually get it by then. It's just when people were like, okay, we think we may have it. And then they had us writing test cases way before the systems were actually finished being like planned out. And so we wrote test cases and we're trying to update them, but eventually like we have like a final set that is not actually the same as the actual design, like the product that they have provided to us. So then a bunch of people who are doing the testing are like confused, like, well, you're telling me to do this thing, but this isn't how the system works. So is that like, then it says, then I guess the test has failed. But it's like, no, that's what we told them to build. The test case just didn't get updated. Yeah, I knew that would happen. Shouldn't have tried to drink. Only reason I want to kill that dude is that I will get a skill point for doing so. Oh, that's a terrible charge. Well, except the problem is that, for instance, let's say that I'm building like a web form essentially, or I asked you to build a web form, and at the start of it, you give me like, here's like a vague prototype, and I write a test case to that prototype. And then I sit down with you and it's like, wait, hang on a minute. This isn't quite right. Let's, move this screen here and change this one and put this one over here. And so you and I sit down, we completely revise it. And then you do what I tell you to do. You make that new prototype. But I never updated the test case to reflect it. And then I go in and run that test case. It's not gonna work the way I said it should, way back then, but it is what I told you to build, and that's exactly what's happening. We have. It depends on. So the people we have helping us with like the writing of test cases, we have a dedicated project management office, and so they're the ones who are in charge of helping us like figure out like, here's how you write test cases and stuff. And so that's kind of the closest, but they are running into all these other issues about like no, we don't have any business analysts on our side. All of the business analysts are from the developer side. There we go. That's so there's two different kinds of testing. There's three different layers of testing. So there's the people in my division. So, the other subject matter experts. So like one expert writes the case, another expert reviews it to make sure it like, it looks right and meets, and, the test case would meet the business requirements that were laid out. And then a third expert, tests it based on how it was written. Then we have our IT department conducting testing, and then developers also conducting their own testing. And so the problem is coming. The issues we're seeing are entirely coming from, well, there are actual bugs, but the issues we're running into with like, oh God, this is a mess, is entirely stuff that's located in my division. Or I should say my division plus the bad training that we got for how to do all this. Oh. One moment. There we go. All right. So back to the game itself. So this little area, I had mentioned before, you know, there's various NPCs, and I've been kind of trying not to do too much to talk to them because most of those like story stuff and NPC quests, and I don't have a ton to say about the quest aside from what I already said, which is that I do appreciate the way they help you track those quests. If you mean the subject matter experts that are writing the test cases, yes, we are in all the yeah, I was one of those people who was writing test cases. We were in most of those meetings about changing the screens and stuff like that. But one of the issues that we kept running into was that we'd tell, because the meetings about writing test cases were guided by our project management office, and the project management office was like, hey, we go, you need to be writing test cases, you gotta get them done quick, which was not true. We started this back in like December, January, and we were only now doing the testing. So they were like, you gotta get this done by like February, March, April, and it's like this is still months ahead of time. We're still in the middle of like revising these things, and so the concept was like there was no like concerted effort once it was done to like, hey, you know, you wrote that test case back in like February. Can you go and double check and make sure that's all like up to date and current with the exact design as you guys have agreed on? And so a lot of people were just like, just forgot to do that, because those test writing meetings stopped once we had cases written. But the actual process of developing the system kept going. So changes kept happening. And like this wouldn't matter if like I was the one running the test case, because I would be like, oh yeah, like I remember why that was written that way, but that's clearly not right. I'll just like, you know, run the test case that's supposed to be, or you know, just revise it. But I'm not running the test case anymore, and so I don't remember what I wrote months ago. It sure would be helpful. It would, again, it would have been helpful just to have like, you know, take 2 weeks of just like, hey, you know, everybody, you're writing cases. Can you go back and make sure that you revise them? Like, if I were in charge, I probably would have done that. Oh my god, that's such a terrible strong attack. Dang it. Once I get rid of this guy. Because this is actually... this is the reason that I found the one-handed sword kind of not a great weapon. But just real quick. Remember, it was a good idea. Yeah, so that, like, a lot of us were on the side of, like, because even if we wrote this stuff as a thing was done being kind of like, let's meet about it, it still would have been done early. Like, the stuff that they're testing now is stuff that was still done several months ago. And we could have written it then, but they were just like, no, you have to get it done you have to get it done before they're finished coding it, even though the actual testing period would be several months after that part of the process. And they're while they're coding stuff, they're showing it off, like, here's what we got done this sprint. So it's not like it's I don't know. They have, like, the agreement with our office and the developer is, like, there's dedicated testing periods. It may have been a kind of, like, I think part of it may have been a kind of, like, wanting to like, make sure certain parts of the system could, like, sustain, all these people going in and, like, hammering the system with various stuff. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But, like, we could have done tests earlier. There was actually a point where, technically speaking, I shouldn't have, but, like, went in and did a quick test because, like, I saw something and I was like, hang on, I'm not sure if this thing was done right, and so I, like, went in and tested. It's like, nope, it wasn't. So I'm glad I did, to, like, call it out in one of the meetings and make sure it got done right. But, like, again, they show those things off a long time. It's slated for go live in 2020, like, near the end of the year 2026. It's a big system, because this is a system through which is going to be a system through which people create committees to say, like, I'm going to be raising money and spending money on elections, for all throughout the state of California, on ballot measures, on candidates, on all sorts of stuff. So it's got to handle registration. It's got to handle, thousands of disclosures. It's got to handle lobbying. It's got to handle, like levying fines and payments into the system, and all sorts of other stuff like that. So there's, like, a bunch of moving parts to it all, and so it's a huge complex system, which is why, again, it's failed to get off the ground multiple times. It's just that huge. But it's, I don't know, it's been going, it seems to have been going generally pretty well. Not like fantastic, but and I could, lots of reasons why it hasn't been going fantastic, but we, at least my team, one of 7 has been starting to hit, let me specify, 1/2 of one of 7 has been making pretty good strides. And so I'm kind of happy with that. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be, like, I think there's literally a like lessons learned meeting this week about this whole thing. And I know, like, one of the key lessons that has been learned from this. It's, yeah, I mean, that would be, like, kind of good. I think one of the issues we ran into is that, like, the people who are kind of like in charge of the testing, like, again, on our side, so this is the project management office, specifically. They don't have a good grasp of what we're doing, and so they kind of aren't doing well at like keeping track of stuff, and so you don't want to necessarily leave it to them, but also it's like, yeah, it's a lot of work, and like you need good. This is a government agency. A lot of people in government agencies tend to be older and tend to not be like very well versed with technology. So you kind of need to be like explaining things for those people, and the explanations are already not very good, and are definitely not helping those kinds of people. Like, me and one other test case writer walked away from, again, 4 separate meetings to try and train us on how to write test cases. 2 of us walked away with the sense of like, yep, okay, I know what I'm doing. And everyone else was like, I guess I'll just wing it. And so that's kind of one of the Omaha? Okay. That must have been a weird misclick. Yeah, sorry about that, Shock. And Millie, I think if like of course, Shock being a pretty constant member here, and Shock knowing who you are, they're probably more likely to forgive you, as opposed to if it had been like just if it had been anyone else, that would have been, well, that person's never coming back. But there's a lot of stuff that can be fixed about that process, but it's just been a mess, and I am very eager for us to be done with the stuff from these next couple weeks. Oh yeah, no, that's that could be potentially dangerous. Yeah, I do keep the mod icons up, but I try to be extremely careful when I'm looking at my Twitch, because I don't think I've made that mistake, but I feel like I've come closer than I would like. Hey, Will, the heat is not great. It could be way worse. I will say that. It's only, it's probably 86 outside right now. That's a rough estimate based on the time, but hit a high of 90 today. And it's August. It probably would pretty normally be like high 90s to well over 100. In fact, next in just a few days it's going to hit 100 again. So yeah, it's actually kind of fine for this time of year. We have not had that many days over 100 this summer, which has been refreshing. But it's still hot in this room. It's because the thermostat's set to 71. The upstairs is usually like 2 to 3 degrees warmer in general, and then as like my doors close and the PC is generating heat, that's going to add several more degrees. So it's probably like mid-high 70s in here right now. So I can very much feel it. Really humid 2 weeks. Nice, yeah. It seems to be kind of overall, nice cool summer to let us relax. Oh, and I was caught up in work talk. I did want to talk about. I was mentioning the attacks because I was running into these problems fighting that big dude. Cider X Feast isn't valid. Waste made a decision that contradicts it. Oh God. That I will say my manager, like, there are varying levels of good and bad, or varying kinds of good and bad manager. It depends on a lot of circumstances. And my manager is not like great. There's been tons of different kinds of complaints about. I've got my own complaints, but he works for my like particular work habits, and B is at least like pretty damn supportive of the people under him. And so I dread the time when it's like I'm going to have to leave my position and work on somewhere else and like possibly encounter someone like that. And unfortunately not much I can do unless I want to just like hang out in my exact position at my same, rough pay rate. I would get raises for a bit, but then cap out. Unless I want to just do that for the rest of my life, which I don't. I want to talk about real quick. This is something I remember talking about this, I believe, when I did a brief tutorial analysis of Black Myth Wukong. Black Myth had a kind of limited repertoire of weapons, weapon. And one of the things that I remember talking about was the weapon combos. So your standard FromSoft, and actually a lot of other Souls-likes have really basic weapon combos. Usually like swing, 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 swing. And it's not flashy, but there is a good reason why you have stuff that's very simple, which is that's easily predictable. You have a kind of pace to how a weapon works that at a given moment how much time you have. And you never have to like kind of guess, and it's usually like an immediate like calculation. So it's like I either do or don't have time for another swing. But this combat system has like specific weapon combos that have different like each quote unquote swing of the weapon. So for example, that's one press of the attack button. So again, one press, 2 swings. And if I do it again, another 2 swings. But those are 2 swings that are like not quite necessarily on the same same timing. It's close, but it's not quite the same. And then a third, and so that kind of like inconsistent timing to attacks is kind of frustrating, because you need to be able to know what's going to happen when you press the button, and if an enemy is going to attack, will I be able to get out of my animation in time to dodge? So the thing that I immediately noticed is if I do a charge strong attack, so that's 5 hits. That's going to take me, let's do 1. That's about, what, 2.5 to 3 seconds. And I can't dodge out of that. Comparatively, let's go back to my longsword. That's my charge strong attack for my longsword. So that's 1, 2. That's about 1.5 to 2 seconds. You kind of want weapons to roughly take the same amount of time. Bigger weapons can take longer to swing, which makes intuitive sense. They're bigger, they hit harder, but they're also slower to wield. But it should not work the other way around in this case. This one-hand sword is a lighter weapon. It's taking longer to perform a charged strong attack than it is with a bigger weapon. Now, the reason it does that is it's doing more attacks, but roughly speaking, the amount of damage is going to be kind of equivalent, as you would expect. This is simple to do. You just make it do like one stab, one big stab, instead of 5 small stabs, because one of the things you can do if you do a charged strong attack is you can like stun an enemy, but you can't really do that if you're doing these smaller attacks. It's not going to build up the stun meter enough. I remember this being like I said, a problem with Black Myth, because the individual attacks in the combo were again inconsistent. Some attacks would take half a second, some would take 3/4 of a second, some might take a full second, and it was just like, okay, it's hard to feel out like, okay, where am I again in my combo? How much time is that going to take? Is that enough time based on like roughly the enemy or boss I'm facing? And it's like that. You don't want that kind of complex calculation going on. That's why weapon attacks are supposed to be really simple, so that you don't have to do complex calculations. If you're going to start inviting kind of like complex calculations, you need a way out. You need basically animation canceling, which is how character action games work, which is fine, but this game doesn't do that. While we're back on the frustrations, Omaha and Will, I wanted to, 'cause I think you both missed this. Shock was here though, and I showed them. But I wanted to show you probably the single most egregious part of this game's design, and what like made me decide I need to do a stream of this to show off like how like how this game is kind of a mess. So I'm going to start by showing you a what was it? It was terminology. Here's a tutorial message. Hold on, drowning. Now this is really something that doesn't like pop up to you. This is something you have to go and find. But you will encounter various bodies of water throughout your journey. While shallow water areas can be explored safely, wading into too deep waters will result in drowning. So let's keep that in mind. I can wade through water as long as it is not too deep. So let me go over here. And let me ask, does this water here look too deep? Now, I mean, it doesn't say what too deep means, but based on what you can see, does it look like this water should be too deep such that it would kill me? Very possible they could be distracted right now. For anybody else who might be, you think it shouldn't be. If you were to take a like guess, I know it could be like rough estimate, like where on the leg do you think it would reach? Like ankle deep, shin deep, knee deep, waist deep, etc. You think it could be chest deep? Wills thinks ankle to knee. So if I step in, that's about, it's hard to see, but that was probably maybe shin deep at most. And of course, just immediate death, like not even a chance. And there are several other places that have similar, like, actually shallow water that just straight up kills you when you drop into it from tiny. Well, so technically what that is a death plane is what that is. There is falling damage. You have to fall from a way further height than, what is functionally, I guess I got to use that against the demon that spawned, because this is a drop of what, maybe 2 feet into that water, maybe 3. And I have absolutely survived steeper drops than that within the past like 5 minutes of gameplay. So the problem that happened basically from like a design standpoint is that they made this area and they kind of wanted to make sure that the player wasn't exploring over here because there's no way back up. Like if I were to go all around and look at this little rocky outcropping, there's not actually a way if I were in the water. Like this is the closest, but the slope here on like this rock wouldn't actually let me get back up here in any way. So they don't want you out here, so they decide what to do is just make it a death plane. You know what? Fair question. As I was saying earlier, like, if you wanted to do that same thing, what you would do is either one, you would make sure that the player cannot see the bottom of this stream. Because if I can see the bottom, that suggests I can potentially stand there. Two, you would make sure this rocky outcropping is way higher, so that when I look at it, I say, oh yeah, that fall would kill me. Heavy rapids would work. It's not the best way to do it, though, because the rule that it sets up for you is that it's the depth of the water specifically. Now, if you make heavier rapids, you might not be able to tell whether the water's too deep or not. So that could still, satisfy the need. But yeah, it's not. Even though it might make intuitive sense, you want to make sure that the environmental design is not in a way that basically a player's not going to look at it and say, like, I think I can live that. The third option would be to just make sure the player can't walk off an edge like that. Just have an invisible wall that prevents them from prevents me from walking off into the water at all. But this is, again, there's a couple other points kind of like this. Although this is the most egregious one. This just like tiny rock here that you fall, a few, like 3 feet at most into shin deep water and die. There is going to be a point later in the game where you can wade into like knee deep water and be just fine. And that's because like that is at its core bad, just straight up bad environmental design. And that's kind of what made me want to dissect this game, because I was floored by that. Like there's bits and pieces about this game that they're like interesting, and I was before talking about some stuff that's actually good. Like as a Souls-like, there are lots of different parts of the genre and lots of different takes on it. And there are things in here. Hey Avery, like impossibly hard, because there's I'm inclined to agree. I don't know how far you got or have gotten, because I don't know if you're currently still playing this or not. I got maybe like halfway-ish through. It's a rough estimate. Okay, so I probably got further than you. Actually, I'm sure I got further than you. And then I hit a point, and I just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah, I didn't like the landmines myself. I don't like a lot of the traps in this game. What's her name? Because you would have beaten her, Avery. I did. I actually liked that the transmogrification, because I kind of dislike the General Lady. I disliked General Lady because I don't know how you beat her. but the thing that I remember is that before I dropped into arena, it said, hey, remember this whole thing about blocking and deflecting and parrying and stuff like that. And immediate thing I thought was, the fact that you're pushing that means that's what you want me to do. I was still like dodge. I was still using like the longsword, and the blink kick, which so like basic stuff and just built out. I tried a few different spells, and eventually I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to respec and get the counter. And it took me like 3 tries once I did that. And I did not care for that. And one thing that I kind of like felt coming out of that is I've really not played with Spear, so maybe Spear feels a bit different, but this feels very the basic combat feels very Bloodborne to me. And that boss felt very much more like Sekiro. Like how fast she attacks, how constantly she attacks, the fact that she's like, you know, putting distance between herself and you once she does like is doing her cooldown, so you can't just like, you know, dodge and then punish easily. Yes, that is very true. But that seems to be like it's trying to kind of have its cake and eat it too, of being both Sekiro and Bloodborne at the same time. But it's not like built very well, especially for the Sekiro part of it. Like the even the counter that you get is still, you know, it's still, you know, your kind of like brief window. That's not the best way to put it, because like that technically is hours, but you know how in like Sekiro you can kind of like you can block pretty quickly. But here it's like, it's, you know, you have like like an actual not cooldown, but like you have to like prep to do another counter kind of thing, or block. So it doesn't have that kind of like rapid block that you can do in Sekiro, but it's still like the boss like combos patterns are built for that, and that kind of ends up being the reason it's like it doesn't feel quite right. And there was another boss later that like had there are quite a few ambushes. There's another boss later that had a kind of like similar issue. Honestly, it was way worse, and that's what caused me to stop playing, because like she could do like multiple attacks like from different angles at different like time periods, so that you like it basically was impossible to dodge everything. You just sometimes would have to take a hit. And that, like, even though I beat her, I was like, you know, I'm just done. I don't. It was too painful to actually do. It's I don't know. I found the boss patterns like early on to be pretty fine. There were a few that I can understand being like made boring. But like once you hit General Lady, it's like it really changes up. Oh wow, that was a heck of a hiccup. I feel like I got lucky with that boss, yeah. because the I could very much understand that issue. Yeah, there's because you mentioned like the free respecking, and I did like that. Especially given how consistently you needed to change stuff around, but okay. I just wish that, like, I think what I wish is that it felt more like it was something that you could decide to do rather than it feel like it was something you had to do. I think what the boss in particular that made me stop playing, because again I was playing throughout pretty much all the game with the longsword, in part because I could obviously freely respec, including the weapon upgrades themselves, but I was just so used to its like the like pattern, like the flow of the weapon, that it was like, you know, I didn't want to switch around. But once I hit that particular boss, I was like, okay, I need to like really change things up. And so that's when I switched to a one-handed sword. And of course, the one-handed sword has a very different way in which you accumulate your action points, which was like, oh, this now makes spells like way more viable, because before I was like trying to do a spell build but having to do like, you know, dodge right and, you know, land enough attacks to build up points, and it got really annoying when bosses would start dodging you. It's like, well, okay, I can't land the hits, then I build the points. So friend says stuff. I would definitely believe that. I feel like there's a lot of games nowadays, Souls-like games, actually just games in general, like are offering New Game Plus and like new stuff to go with it. So that feels almost not to be expected, but pretty common now. And I have I just don't look at mod scenes until I'm like done with the game. So I would have no clue. I have kind of expectations about what would be in some of those mods, just as like guesses. Yeah, that's pretty much what I would be expecting. I was not sure I'd be able to get that. Yeah, I remember hearing that there were a lot of problems with the way the game ran on PC to start. And I can absolutely believe that. I had to like modify the graphic settings a bit just to not like to get it running, but like to get it feeling like pretty consistent. And that does feel kind of par for the course for a lot of modern games, unfortunately. And even then, I'm still running into hiccups. And like, I don't just mean because like I'm streaming. Like I would sometimes run into little hiccups here and there, playing normally. Although, I think getting shot at... I don't think I got hit by that first shot, but it does remind me. Another thing, this was like a really subtle thing that it took me a long time to notice, but I think I noticed it at the general, is that the, like... I don't know, have you noticed the way in which it's very easy for an enemy to attack you and you get hit, but you don't realize that you got hit, unless you like happen to notice the you know, that you suddenly have like less health. Yeah, the like lack of flinching. And it's not even like a kind of like, you know, interrupting flinch, but just like, just the sense of like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like, you know, playing Dark Souls, and you always get this sense, even when you're not, your attack isn't being interrupted, like, oh yeah, I got hit there. Yeah, it's this visual, sometimes like tactile feedback. It's a lot of things, and it's like, it's something that I like didn't notice for a while. I think I remember the first time I think I like started registering it are the like pot enemies, like the ones that like, you know, hide in the pot and, you know, crawl around and stuff like that, spit poison, and they have that like that like claw combo that like I would be in front of them and like attacking, and it would not, like, I would see the attacks, but it wouldn't like register as like I'm getting hit and losing tons of health from these attacks. But like I'm just not thinking about it. What was his name? Dutanga? The monk guy? Yeah, the bandit monk. Oh yeah, that's... Amelia, it took me a while to realize there was a transmog system. But yeah, that was a solid look. If it weren't for the fact that like, those stats weren't great, base compared to the starting armor, I would have been like, yeah, I'd probably wear that myself. Oh, it's... Hold on. Well, I'm too far in. Yeah, that unfortunately tracks. I...
别打了，没办法，别打了，没办法。
I guess. I mean, there is like a certain part of me that's like, you know, I guess on some level I like it, but because it's, you know, it's designed to appeal to, you know, your you know, straight dudes. But there's another part of me that's like, ugh, why do we gotta keep doing this? Let's see, anything else? I think that's about... I'm trying to think, because we got a bit major boss coming up, but the boss itself, I don't recall. You know, it's like I said, it wasn't until a certain point, which is pretty far out. Wedge shield sandals. Is that not these, is it? No, maybe it's a different armor. No, I didn't take like like the starting armor. It's hard to... Oh, okay, no. And yes, the oh, I felt like the... Are those what? Wow, really? Huh. Fascinating. I remember like wearing that, yeah, wearing that costume for like total of 5 seconds. Like, yep, they just like not even trying. There is also because what the ladies in the one of the later areas like also all dressed in very like also revealing clothing, and it's like, come on, is that really needed? Oh wait, no, I was going to show off because because Avery, I think you got here just as I was talking about the like water deaths in the kind of like first areas of the game. and I was mentioning like, oh yeah, and there are definitely sections of the game where like you can easily walk into deeper water because the places where you can die, it's like ankle to shin deep. But like here you get a it's like this water I can easily walk into, and this is about knee deep, just a little bit less. You can easily walk through here with no problem. You can be about thigh deep, give or take. Almost waist deep. No problem. This was like I just found this so annoying. But like I was saying, I don't really have a whole lot else. Because if I wanted to like try, I had to push for like another few hours just to get to the boss that Avery and I were talking about not too long ago. That was like the like actual like where the game really starts ramping up. I think. I never actually tried it, but I did think it might be, since it has the little icon on it, or not the what are they called? Divination Crescent, is that what it's called? Yeah. And because I remember seeing it, I was like, well, that's interesting. So fun bit. Near this happened like 10-15 minutes ago. Near Lightson Temple. I was showing off. I'll go ahead and teleport there just to show you. There's that like rocky outcropping bridge that you cross like this, kind of gentle stream that will kill you. So I was talking to Omaha and Will about showing that to him. I was like, this bit's ridiculous, like how shallow this is and how small drop it is, and yet it still kills you. And so I showed it, and I died right on this little rock here. And apparently I had full madness when I died, because then I came back and obviously it spawned into a demon. So I was like, oh crap, I don't want to fight it on the bridge. So I ran back up here, and it just like walked straight. It must walk straight off this rock, and died. I got back up to like looking. I was like, well, where'd it go? And then it's like, oh, and madness dispelled, or whatever the message is. It was pretty good. Not least of which is like, oh, good. I didn't want to have to fight it. So that's something I do appreciate, those little moments of levity, but I would prefer like honestly a better game. But yeah, like saying there's a boss that's coming up soon, but like I was about to say, there's not really anything special about that boss. Like I remember it giving me a tiny bit of trouble, but oh yeah, no, I unfortunately did pay for this, and have gotten way too far in the game to ask for a refund. It was at the end of the day, it was useful. I get something out of playing games, even when they have like these kind of like glaring design flaws, because it's like something to like think about and talk about with friends, or even, you know, sometimes just like do stuff like this. Because I was talking about stuff earlier, for instance, Avery, about like the jargon in this game, all this stuff. Like, you probably remember all the different tutorial menus and all the different terms. You know, Skyborn Might, Enter a Dream, Impetus Repository, and like those are all things that like you can start to make sense of, but it's a lot of stuff that has specific terminology that like actually does not need it. At least not all of it. And so that was one of the first things I remember like getting into the game, was like, what do all these things even mean? I talked about the skill tree, and like I think the skill tree was interesting, and I love the fact that the respec, as much as like I never made use of the temper system, I think the temper system is like really neat, and I think the only wish I had is that rather than unlocking it through unlocking more stuff through the skill tree, it was stuff you unlock through exploring the world. I might have made better use of it, because then I would have had, you know, more upgrades. I love the you know, quest tracking system that they have. So it wasn't like a like complete loss. And so I like doing this kind of stuff, because I like to be able to take time to then think about like, okay, this is wrong. Something here is wrong. And then just like sit within, like, figure out like, why is it wrong? How should things be working, and stuff like that. Again, I'm harping on a lot just because it's so blatant a flaw, but like that kind of like the water system. Oh no, they're I'm not saying they invented it. It's just that like it is something that is not common for these kinds of games, and I think it is good to just to have it. Because like a lot of things are you know, it's borrowing from a lot of stuff. That's honestly like one of the problems. That it feels like it's borrowing from too many places, but especially with the combat stuff, it's like it doesn't have like a clear identity for how the combat's supposed to work, because it feels like it's trying to do too many things at once. Again, the corollary I have is like, it feels like it's Bloodborne and Sekiro not at the same time, but like at different points, and yet those are two systems that don't quite mesh right. And so it just feels like you're trying to, you know, it's a bringing a knife to a gunfight kind of thing. But it's only by playing those games and like feeling those like that wrongness that you then can like sit down and think about like, okay, why does it feel wrong? What is the problem? And like, I enjoy that intellectual exercise. So I am ultimately fine with having spent the money on this, even though one, it is probably overall a negative experience. And two, I'm not pushing further than I already have. But I still got something out of it. And so that was kind of worth it to me. But that is only my calculation of it. And it's like, I would not necessarily like recommend it to anyone else, especially if they had to pay money for it. And especially if like you have a very limited game budget, like, yeah, being able to play something like this off of Game Pass is golden, because like can you imagine, like, if the primary thing you want from a game is like entertainment, is fun, and then you got a game that was like, well, this isn't fun, and I've wasted like $40 to $60, and I can't, it's too late. I can't return it. I can't, get a refund. So what do you do? Is it just a lost cause, or you keep like squeezing blood from that stone? So like that's why, unless you have like a pretty good either a really like good set of disposable income that you can spend on more games, or like other reasons that you play games, it's worth being selective. And making use of all the free games and other services. So it's yeah, it's worth being selective at the end of the day, and having all the. I find that really weird how she looks straight at the camera. But yeah, I think that's all I fundamentally want to talk about. No. What's the ROM hack? Like, is it a... Like, there's a few... When you say, like, a anticipated ROM hack, like, there's a few directions I can see it going. Like, one would be just, like, an overhaul ROM, just, like, radically changing it. Another, I could, easily imagine, like, a Kaizo... Oh... That's interesting. Huh. That'd be kind of neat. It's, huh. I admittedly was not a, and I wasn't a huge fan of Super Metroid. I think it was mostly because of when I played it. Like, I was playing it at a time where I'd already played tons of other Metroidvanias. I was very used to a lot of, modern game development sensibilities that hadn't been kind of like developed until well after Super Metroid. So, but, Hyper Metroid also was a 10th anniversary overhaul called Hyper Metroid Super, and to be less confusing, it definitely was neat. Yeah, I have no very little knowledge of like Super Metroids and the community around it as a result. But it is still cool to hear like it's getting all this amazing stuff, because like it's still like really good work, even if I'll probably never touch it because I just got so much. I'm probably one of the next game. 'Cause I just refinished Rise of the Golden Idol to and played the DLC. And then I'm going to be playing, starting up, there's a new Ninja Gaiden game developed by the Game Kitchen, which are the people who made Blasphemous. And I'm probably going to check that out just because I really like Blasphemous. Especially I think Blasphemous 2 does a really good job to build on what they'd already established and as like better gameplay. So I'm definitely curious. I'm good. I was a little uncertain. I assume you've played Blasphemous before, and Blasphemous 1 was definitely rough. Like, it's not bad. It's just like it's rough. But Blasphemous 2 is just so like I love Blasphemous 1. Like it's a game I'm thinking about picking up as a speed run at some point. But Blasphemous 2 is definitely like better just as an overall gameplay sense. And if the Ninja Gaiden game, like, so to speak, takes after that later stuff, I think it would be I think it would be a really fun game to play. So I'm looking forward to it. Although I have to, it may be a couple days. I'm currently watching Gundam G-Quux, and so I want to try and finish that tomorrow because I got a coworker that I've been talking about this stuff with, and they are probably really they're going to have lots of questions about where I am. Yes, I love the environment of Blasphemous. It's such an interesting world and stuff like that. I was just watching one of my oh really? I'm not surprised to hear that, actually. Because so much of the iconography is borrowed from actual stuff, like a lot of the pointed hats and stuff like that. So there's so many things that are borrowed, and of course, like, just like, lightly modified from stories in the Bible and stuff like that. It's like it feels realistic that there might be an actual story along those lines. So that feels like it tracks. But okay, that's yeah, I guess that makes sense of why that would happen. That definitely not a great story, but probably better in a sort of realism sense than the story from Blasphemous itself, which was what the girl burns her face because people basically like her too much, and she wants to not detract from the miracle. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of all I had to talk about with this game. I mean, again, all I want to talk about that like I'm willing to do on stream, just because getting to the other stuff would take far too long. Getting to the boss that made me give up. I'd have to fight her again, which I don't want to do. But B would be like that's like a good 10 or so hours away of gameplay, and that's just too much to bear, just to show that off and complain about it. So I think I'll kind of call it here, and once the weather cools down on a more consistent basis, I'll probably start streaming again more regularly. My plan is that definitely one of the things I want to do is get back to the speedrun practice for Tunic, and okay, Avery, I have to say, I am glad to hear that. I also did not care for Moonlighter. I tried it I don't know, a long time ago. I played it for a few hours, tried a few runs and stuff like that, and I was like, this like is fine, but I don't want to play more of it. So I also had that same feeling. I was like, this is pretty highly rated. Is there something wrong with me? But I think part of the problem is like the thing I think I admittedly just personally did not like and did not gel with was the shopping mechanic, which is of course like a huge chunk of the game. It's also the reason why I kind of ended up not trying out Cult of the Lamb, because like, not that those are necessarily equivalent, because I think Cult of the Lamb like looked like better overall, but for Moonlighter, the like dungeon exploration mechanics and combat was like, it was fine, but I didn't find the shopping, market stuff to be that engaging and of course what you're really doing is like you're kind of like doing that cycle over and over of like you explore so that you can sell stuff in the shop so that you can buy, upgrade the town and buy stuff and stuff like that so you can explore more. And it's like, well, half of that I don't really want to do. If I wanted to play the game, I want to do the exploration stuff. I just want to like keep going, but obviously you're not supposed to because it's not gonna help you out. And so it's like, okay, then I should just not do it. I should just not play the game. And I think that was where I was like, you know what? I've put a few hours into it, and it's like, this is not. I should not continue. Which is, there are plenty of people who seem to like that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the shop stuff as a consequence. Maybe it could have been built better, but I cannot be the one to like say how it should work, because at the end of the day, my take is like it should not exist, which is then why does Moonlighter exist? So if there are fixes, they can't come from me. But again, that's same like Cult of the Lamb. Like I would, it's cool to watch. I would never play it myself because I did not like. I think I would find the actual cult like management business too annoying. But that's fine. Like I don't have to play it. It's as simple as that. Hope. I don't know, if you decide you want to quit Moonlighter, I hope then your next game ends up being more engaging. If you're still playing Moonlighter, I hope it keeps you entertained for a while. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for tonight. Like I said, once things cool down, I'll start coming back with a more regular schedule. So Avery, thank you so much for hanging out with me and chatting about this game. I hope you have a good rest of your night, good week. Omaha, Shock, Will, thank you so much all for stopping by. Anybody else who was here, thank you for lurking if you did, and I'll be back sometime. Stay cool, try not to burn up, enjoy your summer, everyone. So long.